Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Go back to this. With this one? There we go. Okay. We're going to continue to move along here. We got a few more speakers before we get to lunch. I want to thank that group again for their insightful opinions on the pipeline side of the business, something I'm very fond of. Next up, Brett Edwards, CEO and President of Revelant USA, and he will share his thoughts on the topic of making money in mature fields. I think that could probably apply to a number of the conventional operators that are out here in Ohio. Brett has 30 years of international experience with technologically advanced petroleum exploration firms, beginning in 1983 as an explorationist and manager developing a systematic risk analysis process. Sounds pretty cool. In addition to his geotechnical skills, he is proficient in strategic planning, integrated portfolio management, analyzing corporate cultures, and aligning corporate and individual goals. Please welcome to the stage Brett Edwards.
Where's the clicker?
Is over here.
There we go. Okay. Well, thank you guys for a chance to share a little bit about our company and a little bit about some potential hope for changing the economics of stripper wells across the Midwest. This talk basically started in Houston when I gave a talk to the Global Technology Workshop on basically the implementation of a disruptive innovation. And we've gained some information along the way, and I'm going to share some of the data and some of the economics that we think is going to have an impact on your stripper wells. And Marty told me that you guys have got 55,000 stripper wells, and 15,000 of them are oil. And this technology can potentially have a big impact on those 15,000 wells. Also some of the wet gas, as you've got some significant liquids. In talking to Matt Pettigrew this morning, after speaking with him yesterday, and one of the questions that I hope to answer, he said, why are you here in Ohio when the focus of your company is significant on the North Slope and the Permian Basin and the Uinta Basin? So hopefully by the end of the talk I'm going to answer that question, as it has a lot to do with my passion. So we are pioneering a new frontier. It's called nanofluidity, and it's not only going to have an impact in energy, but also agriculture, health, food, and many other areas. We are partnering with a professor out of Colorado State who has a team, as well as with KU, are doing some core flood work with us, but the technology is really being developed, and we've had a significant result that I'm going to talk about a little bit further on. So this was the talk that I gave in Houston, and we've learned a lot of lessons from the Horseshoe Gallup field in New Mexico. Discovered back in 1957, it's produced 175 million barrels of oil to date, 10 to 12% recovery factor. All of the 3,800 wells are stripper wells producing 1 to 4 barrels of oil per day. We've got 30 tools deployed in that area, and I'm going to show you some of the results, the changes in the fluid, and also the changes in the economics. But a little bit about the technology first, because I've got to give you a little bit of context. These are our problems when it comes to production optimization: paraffin, asphaltene, heavy oil scale. These are 2 of the 4 downhole tools that we deploy. They are production optimization solutions. They are preventative. They are non-chemical, non-magnetic, non-radioactive. We are basically transferring heat energy into the terahertz. I'm going to talk a little bit about the science But if I do that, I don't get onto the economics. So you have to give me a little bit of grace on that area in the short period of time. So, what do we do? If I had to describe it simply, we homogenize oil. We keep paraffin, asphaltene in solution by changing the molecular dispersion. Okay? We homogenize oil. We don't remove the paraffin. It's there through the flow lines, up your tubing, tanks to the refinery. On the paraffin side, we change molecular solubility. On the scale side, we basically push the formation of calcium carbonate to aragonite rather than to calcite. So the science, the two diagrams you see, or the microscopic diagrams you see down the bottom, calcite crystals on the left-hand side, aragonite crystals on the right-hand side, that we can see very, very quickly. You can see it under a microscope. You can see it work, both in water applications but also downhole. One is soluble, one is not. And basically there's a very different crystalline structure, whereas the calcite have the cations or the calcium to the external, and aragonite has the carbonates to external. That's all I'm going to go into the science right now. This technology was found through observation and dumb luck some 25 years ago. In the agricultural industry, it was deployed since 1990, basically with smaller companies, a lot in Canada where pour point was a major issue. 2,500 tools have been deployed in northern Canada because you can measure immediately changes in pour point. In the US, in the Horseshoe Gallop field, we saw a change in pour point from 71 degrees to 21. Basically a 50-degree drop in pour point. And that's why most of those tools have been deployed in northern Canada, where people were desperate for a solution because of the temperature and access to well site. Just a list of some of the companies before we took over the US and 21 other countries. We basically initiated our sales team to the US in August of 2016 at ERTEC and the Permian Basin International Oil Show in October. But these were the companies that Brian basically was able to engage in with before we came on the scene. So a little bit on the timeline of the company before I get into the fun stuff. Brian basically is the Canadian founder. He tried to figure out how the science worked way back in 1990s, but the precision of the instrumentation to measure the energy in the terahertz space was not available back then. August of 2015 changed everything, changed the name, the company, the brand, what we were doing, and our engagement with the mid-caps and the majors, who are now starting to engage with us on the North Slope and the Permian Basin, the Uinta Basin, and our partnership with CSU and with Brownstein on the patent side. We've submitted 3 patents, and we've got 2 more waiting to go in. So as a company, we're focused on these 4 specific areas. And you'll notice the Midwest is not in them. So these areas, we've had significant traction. We've had the Horseshoe Gallop field, which is the left-hand one, where we've got 32 tools in hole, and I'm going to show you some of the before and after oils. The Uinta Basin, where the pour point of the oil is 105 degrees. Basically, at surface, it's shoe polish. And that type of oil, we see a reduction in the analog of 44 degrees. Now it's liquid on surface. That changes everything in that particular basin. In the Permian Basin, we've had tools in hole with Pioneer for 4.5 years. They were spending $700 to $1,000 a month on 20 barrel a day type of, for them, vertical, low productivity wells. They haven't touched those wells in 4.5 years. No chemicals, no hot oiling, no pump pulls, nothing. And so that's really pushed us into the Permian Basin. And then just recently, Alaska's always been on my radar screen because of the Alaska pipeline and the reduction of throughput in that pipeline. If it gets below somewhere around 300,000 a day, it becomes the world's biggest candle, given the temperatures going across Alaska. And we've just been pulled into that area by Conoco and Hillcorp, and we're going to be doing some, one of their fields, which is the West Sac field. It's basically 12 billion barrels of heavy oil, 18 API, and they've got major problems with viscosity. Okay, so this is the Horseshoe Gallop field. This is why we're playing in that game. The operators, we've just actually signed up WPX, and so we've basically got all of the operators who've seen the results, and they're deploying the technology in 3,500 of those wells is what the plan is. Here's why. So what we've got here is, I'm going to show you this video. I'm going to move it in a minute. But, it's basically been done. Number one is the oil before. You can see on the thermometer it's 78 degrees in the room, and the pour point of this oil before in a cat was 72 degrees. Number two is after 4 days in hole. Number three was this particular oil had a very significant emulsion problem, and you'll be able to see that that has had a significant impact where we get the separation. And we just got a test back 2 days ago from the Uinta Basin where we just put the tool on surface in oil that basically was not separated, and within 2 hours the oil and the water had separated. And number four is on surface after 5 months, so the product is still remaining in the new state. So if you can just start that video. And you'll see number one is kind of like a molasses, a honey. It's pretty nasty stuff. Production issues. Number two, 4 days later, just when the oil got to surface, then the emulsion, and then 5 months later, still in the same state. Okay, if you're just moving on. Okay. Now, here's the reason I'm here. In this field with the 30 wells, we've had 3 wells that have given us some surprising results. All of these 3 wells were shut in, not because of by choice, but one was shut in with a lightning strike, one was shut in with a motor failure on a pump jack, and the other one was shut in with a flow line leak. And because the technology typically changes calcite to aragonite, in scale it's both remedial and preventative. And we tell the guys when they put this tool down hole, if they've got old flow lines that are held together by rust and scale, watch out. Pay attention and go and monitor them, because it's likely that that scale and rust will be remediated and you'll have pipeline leaks. Anyway, these 3 wells. And typically in this area, if you shut in a well, you basically set it up. You've got to go in and stimulate again. When they turned the wells back on, number one, they didn't have to stimulate. Number two, post-flush production, the production rate stayed up much higher than it should have. And we're talking about 5 barrels a day went to 20 barrels a day and stayed up. Eventually came back to 5, but there was significant increase in the production. And it really got us thinking about, our tools and whether or not the energy was getting back into the formation and releasing some of the bound oil. It wasn't until December when we got from our CSU partnership, we got a result back on interfacial water tension. And the interfacial water tension, the tool reduces the interfacial water tension by 10% or more. And that has been a significant thing where we've immediately gone into the patent process. Can't show you a lot about it, I can tell you. But that made a lot more sense when we started to understand that the water is our transport mechanism, oil is our absorption mechanism. And so when these things were shut in, maybe what's doing is that energy is flowing to gradients equalizing, and then going further back in during the shut-in process. So we said, okay, we've got a field lab in Osage County in Oklahoma. This area has had flat production for 3 decades. And they don't measure it by barrel, an inch a day in the tank. Bunch of water, but an inch a day in the tank. And so what we said to one of the guys in our field lab is, take that well over there that you've had 3 decades of flat production, and what I want you to do is shut it in for 3 days and produce it for 4 and see what happens. Shut it in, and so typically he gets 7 inches a week. The first week after flush production, 11 inches. The next week, 11 inches, and it's been flat 11 inches for 9 weeks. We tried another well in northern Colorado with a little company after we learned this. And little company that was being forced by the state to shut in a bunch of inactive wells because they were uneconomic, and they were desperate for some solution. And I've heard similar desperation from some of the people that I've talked to over the last day and a half. We need a solution. Price we can't affect. But if we can change LOEs, reducing them, potentially increase production, then maybe, we can get above water. This little company here, they got a 3 barrel a day increase, and it stayed at flat 3 barrels a day increase. And so, what we're seeing is something that really interests us, and it really, after talking to some of my guys, they said, Brett, this could potentially impact the stripper wells across the Midwest and change people's lives, families, communities, and have an impact. And that sort of stuff energizes me, and it's why we put together this program. And it's not our area of focus for the company, but it's our area of give back, and we're basically choosing 8 states. We're going to do basically 12 wells per state. We're going to put the tools in hole. We're going to measure the data before and after. We're going to capture, look at the economics, and come back and present to all of the different associations your data with wells that were done in your area, and look at the economics and see how much. Now, somebody asked, how much is this going to cost them? And we typically work on around 50 cents a barrel produced of oil. 50 cents a barrel produced. That's a starting point. But all of these little companies that are looking at in Oklahoma, a 60% change in production, that they've never seen a change in 3 decades. And it's had significant impact. And this is what we're doing. And I think we've actually had discussions with quite a few companies over the past day and a half, and I think we've got enough wells potentially, but we're looking to make sure that we get tools in hole across all of the different play types, all of the different reservoirs for the oil production, both here, West Virginia. We haven't been to Pennsylvania, but what we're finding is people are willing to sign up for 90 days. We make a risk-free trial for people who are involved. If you don't think it works, give us back the tool sometime next when you pull it out. So we're going to de-risk it for you so that we get information to potentially the whole group so they can potentially see a change in economics and bring a little bit of hope back to the Midwest stripper wells. So, thank you very much.